Workbook. Module 1. Exercise 1, page 6. Speaker 1.
I guess I started playing electronic games when I was really young. Maybe too young. Of course, then we didn't have so many mobile devices, so I could only play at home. I'd usually spend about 3 or 4 hours a day on it, but now I've got all sorts of gadgets I can take around with me. So I play games on public transport and even at my desk at work. If I ever forget to take one with me, I get really anxious and can have a really rough day.
Speaker 2.
I reckon I play badminton about 3 or 4 times a week. We usually meet in the evenings after work and play for about 2 hours, but sometimes we spend the whole evening playing. I really enjoy it, and I think it helps keep me focused and alert, but more importantly, it gets me out of the house. We don't take it seriously at all, and we talk and laugh a lot while we're playing. Yeah, it's more about spending time together, really.
Speaker 3.
In a way, it's a bit of a mystery why I'm so fond of water sports. When I was younger, I spent a lot of time at the seaside with my parents. Then, when I moved to Oxford, I did other things like rugby and cricket, and I didn't think that much about it. But after a few years of living far away from the sea, I felt something was missing from my life. I don't know, it's strange. Anyway, now I live on the coast again, and I do several different kinds of water sports.
Speaker 4.
You know, it's not that difficult to explain. My parents loved it, so they used to take me along to the theatre with them when they went. Now I've got a fairly tough job with lots of responsibilities, and I spend a lot of hours at the office. Still, I get to see a play at least once a week. It's the only moment when I can truly sit back, take it easy, and enjoy myself. There are lots of small theatres in town, so there's always something good on.
Speaker 5.
It might sound strange, but watching movies is a very important part of my life. I go to the cinema about 2 or 3 times a week, and if I don't feel like going out, I rent something. My parents complain sometimes about all the money I spend. Anyway, I avoid anything serious or too melodramatic because I think there's enough of that in my hectic day-to-day life. I'm a bit of a dreamer and I need some escapism. These days, I'm really into animated films.
Speaker 6.
I've always enjoyed reading books, whether it be fiction, history, or almost any other subject you care to mention. So I joined my local book club as I wanted the opportunity to discuss the books I'd read with other people. It's really interesting to discuss the ideas in the books and very intellectually stimulating. I have learned a lot from going to the club, and I enjoy expressing my views too.
Exercise 2, page 6.
There's no doubting the affection that the British hold in their hearts for the game of football and for its most talented players. One such player is my guest today, Ryan McClare, who will soon be leaving our shores to settle permanently in the United States. And I can't help but wonder, Ryan, if Americans will ever develop the same kind of attachment that we do to the sport they call soccer.
Well, the popularity of football is increasing slowly but steadily in the US, and that's basically what has made me so keen to go there. I want to help fire up that enthusiasm and help football become as established as other sports there. I think their passion for the game is just below the surface and just needs some encouragement.
You've been criticised for your decision for a number of reasons. Some say that you're only after the huge amounts of cash you can make, and others claim that it's because in fact your high-flying European career is over.
It just goes to show that a lot of people in the media want to be as hurtful as they can to sell more papers. I mean, really, they must be joking. The truth of the matter is that whether I stay or go, I can still make money. Good money. So that's not why I'm doing it. And as far as my career goes, it's common knowledge that my team wants me to stay. And, don't forget, I'll still be playing for my country.
So, you're making the move purely out of love for the game and to promote it in the States?
I'm really excited about the opportunity I've been given to be involved in something that's considered new and fresh. In some ways, attitudes in Europe towards football are a bit, well, tired, because it has all been seen and done before. And for me as a person, not just an athlete, a whole new world is about to open up. That's why I'm going.
You mentioned before that you'll still be part of the England team. How are you going to cope with jetting between two continents?
Just as I've always coped with travelling as an international player. All players have to travel frequently. You get used to it. And anyway, I'm an athlete. We don't get as tired from jet lag as much as people who aren't fit do. And it's not as if it's going to be every other day, is it?
You've had some problems with recurring injuries, though, lately. Do you think you're going to be fit enough for the start of the season with your new team?
I certainly hope so. I can't wait to get on the pitch to play. But the doctors are keeping a close eye on my physical condition, and whatever advice they give, I will follow it. If I have to take things a bit slower at first, then that's the way it goes.
We've talked a lot about the way you feel about the move, but what about your family?
I think my wife is more excited than I am. Players' families are used to moving around. It goes with the job, to be honest. As for my son, he just sees it as another holiday somewhere. And as a parent, I think it's great that I can offer him the opportunity to experience so many fantastic different places at such an early age.
So it seems that the whole family is looking forward to the move then. That's great. But what about your new teammates? Do you think they're just as pleased about you coming?
I've met everybody on the team, and they were all really warm and friendly. I've made it clear to everyone that I will be just another member of the team, so I don't want any special star treatment. It's not a case of me and them. It just doesn't work like that at a professional level.
Well, I think we've pretty much set the record straight here today, Ryan. Thanks for coming in to talk to us.
Thanks for having me.
Module 2. Exercise 1, page 20. Speaker 1.
My husband took me to an East Asian restaurant for my birthday this year, as I'm wheat intolerant, and their cuisine use very little wheat. I even managed to order noodles because they were made from rice. The evening was great. We ate so much. However, the next morning I woke up feeling a little ill, and when I looked in the mirror, a bad skin rash had developed on my face. I couldn't believe it. We had only eaten vegetables and wheat-free noodles. I went to the doctor to ask his advice, and to my surprise he informed me that soy sauce contains wheat. That dark liquid that is used for seasoning contains wheat. I couldn't believe it. And yes, I'd used it on my meal that night. I now take a book listing foods containing wheat wherever I go.
Speaker 2.
It really annoys me that I'm allergic to dairy products. It's astonishing the number of things I can't eat. I didn't realise it myself until I was told I had a dairy intolerance and had to research it. My friends find it difficult to believe too. They always have to phone me before they have me to dinner to check if the ingredients are okay. People are very kind and accommodating, but I still managed to have a mishap once. I was visiting my aunt and she had bought some soya milk so I could have some tea with her and my cousin. We sat around drinking and talking for ages. However, after about an hour, I began to feel really nauseous, and I seemed to be showing signs of my allergy. It turned out that my aunt had accidentally put normal milk in my tea and soya milk in my cousin's. She felt awful, poor thing.
Speaker 3.
I discovered that I was allergic to shellfish when I was a young boy. My mother loves to eat prawns, and when I was 5, I apparently decided to try some. Shortly after, I started to have trouble breathing and had to be rushed to hospital. After that, I stayed well away from any food from the sea. However, years later, I was in a restaurant with my friend and we were sharing a platter of different foods. I had been eating what I believed to be deep-fried onion rings, only to find it was squid. I waited anxiously for my allergic reaction to develop, but, to my amazement, it never did. I visited my doctor and he explained it isn't unheard of for allergies developed in childhood to disappear in adulthood. I was very happy, although I'm still a little nervous about going out for a seafood meal.
Speaker 4.
I suffer from migraines and had a terrible one 2 weeks ago. My parents and I had been to Belgium for a long weekend and returned home laden with specialty Belgian chocolates, some for friends and family, and of course some for ourselves. One night, my mother and I decided to open a box and indulge while we were watching a film on TV. They were delicious and I ate quite a few. I really loved the ones covered in dark chocolate. Unfortunately for me, I won't be able to eat it anymore. I didn't realise it was a common trigger for migraines, and the one that I developed that night was excruciating.
Speaker 5.
My friend Anna and I share a common allergy. Neither of us can eat peanuts. Other nuts, Brazil nuts, walnuts, pistachios, and so on, are fine, but if we eat peanuts, we have a frightening reaction where our throats tighten and we have difficulty breathing. I enjoy cooking with Anna, as we both know how careful we have to be. On one occasion, a couple of years back, we visited a mutual friend. I had eaten crisps from the bowl on the coffee table, and within seconds my throat started to swell. It was horrible, and quite a scary experience for our friend. She later discovered that although she had been refilling the bowl of crisps throughout the afternoon, her flatmate had, at one point, filled the bowl with peanuts.
Speaker 6.
John had been off collecting wood for the fire and returned with some wild mushrooms. I was really anxious, but the other guys checked the manual we had and said they were a safe variety to eat. Plus, John's a chef, so we trusted his judgment. It was only 10 minutes after eating one that Adam was throwing up violently. I knew we shouldn't have cooked them. We had plenty of our own supplies.
Exercise 2, page 20.
For today's edition of Health Focus, we have been joined in the studio by Dr. Dorian Michaels, who is here to tell us about a group for people with diabetes. Dr. Michaels, thank you for coming along today.
No problem at all. I'm keen to make more people aware of the group.
So why did you feel it was necessary to set up the group? Could you give us a little background?
The group was established a little under a year ago in response to a high demand for information from our patients. We were impressed by how many people wanted to understand their situation and manage it effectively, so we wanted to offer help. The drop-in sessions seemed the most effective idea, as patients could speak to healthcare professionals face-to-face.
So it offers a very personal approach then?
That was our aim, and we certainly appear to be achieving it. People want to speak to people, not sit in front of the internet all day. And what's more, sometimes they just want to get together with other people that share common problems. As a group, they can compare their experiences.
So these drop-in sessions, I think people can meet at the local town hall once a week, is that right?
That's right, Thursday night.
How do they work? Is there a typical order of events?
There isn't really a typical evening, although things have become a lot more structured as time's progressed. We found the best way to organise the meetings is to work from a suggestion box. We leave it in the meeting room each week, and group members can use it to notify us of the topics they would like addressed.
So the sessions are run by healthcare professionals, but are very much governed by the members?
Absolutely. We tailor the meetings according to the feedback we receive. For example, diet is very heavily linked with diabetes, so it was suggested that we offer cooking advice. It was very successful, and now, on a monthly basis, we have a session dedicated to recipe sharing and cooking techniques. We have a nutritionist from the local hospital who takes members' favourite recipes and rewrites them in a form that is healthier for people with diabetes. She's very good at it, and the group members think she's great.
What a good idea!
I agree, and it's always a lot of fun, which I think is important. We do use group sessions to address more scientific issues, but rather than lecturing patients all the time, we hold question and answer sessions to help explain new developments to our members in the area of diabetes research. We try to be as informative and at the same time approachable as possible. We want our group members to be relaxed and enjoy the meetings.
So, do your meetings have specific age restrictions, or can anyone come along?
Oh, everyone's welcome, definitely. At the moment, all our group members are adults, but I think that's because adults are keen to learn about the disorder, as they have to look after themselves. We would like to see more children, but they are, understandably, less enthusiastic to learn about science and specialised cooking, but we do have some carers who come along on their behalf.
I see. And how do people find out about the group?
Well, we put up notices around the hospital, but the most effective promotion of the meetings so far has been done by our enthusiastic members who regularly produce leaflets and hand them out to local shops and businesses. They really do make a commendable effort on behalf of the group. And after seeing the success of our group, our hope is to set up a network of support groups throughout the country.
That's great. And I'm sure you'll get a good response from people out there. We wish you the best of luck and continued success.
Thank you very much.
Exercise 3, page 21.
Mr. Jacobs, thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today about your wonderful new shop, which I visited myself a couple of days ago. So, tell us, what made you decide to open a shop selling organic produce?
I'm really pleased you like the shop, thanks. Well, business aims aside, the main reason for starting this venture was to bring good quality food at affordable prices to the people of Camden. At the moment, we only sell organic fruit and vegetables, but we hope, as the business grows, to include organic meat and other organic produce such as cheese and eggs.
You've certainly got off to a good start. Your shop seems to be the talk of the town at the moment. Can you tell us in more detail about why you wanted to sell organic fruit and veg?
Firstly, I'm not a Londoner. I grew up on my parents' farm in Kent, and every meal we ate was made using fresh produce from the fields. So I think an awareness of good quality food was instilled in me from an early age. I didn't know, though, how lucky I was until I moved to London and saw how hard it is to get really fresh, high-quality farm produce. I mean, most of the fruit and veg in supermarkets is pre-packaged and may have travelled hundreds or even thousands of miles before it gets to the shops. It's not really fresh at all.
So you don't think there is good quality food to be found in London?
Oh no, I'm not saying that. You can find almost anything you could possibly want in London, if you know where to go. But the thing is, most of the specialty shops are very expensive, particularly those selling organic produce. It's very difficult to find good produce at reasonable prices. I realised there was a gap in the market and that I could sell a high-quality product that was not beyond the pocket of most people. I think everyone deserves to have access to good fresh food, not just people with an above-average income.
Was your parents' farm organic?
No, the demand for organic produce is a relatively new thing, and when I was growing up, very few farms were organic. It's only in recent years that people have begun to question the idea of spraying crops with chemical fertilizers and pesticides. People are, quite rightly, concerned about the health impacts of these chemicals on our foods, and this has led to the growth of organic farming. The only problem is that organic products tend to be far higher than the price of conventionally farmed goods. This is partly because the costs of organic farming are higher, but also because organic goods are very fashionable at the moment.
Once you realised there was a need for affordable organic produce, what did you do next?
Well, I approached my parents to see what they thought of the idea. My mother has always approved of organic farming, even though it requires a lot more time and effort to tend to the crops. So when I raised the subject with her and told her about the rising demand for such goods in London, she was all for it. My father, however, was a little apprehensive at first, but it didn't take long to make him see the benefits of getting involved in this growing sector of farming, to be honest.
All the produce you sell comes from your parents' farm, then?
It does indeed. It's great working with my parents, and it's wonderful to be linked to the farm again all the way from London. Hopefully, people will pick up on the family nature of this venture. It's a more personal approach, which I think is really important, as shopping in big supermarkets can feel a bit cold and impersonal. Even if we expand as a business, I want to keep it friendly, a shop with a personal touch, just the way shops were in the past when local people would meet up in the grocer's for a chat as they did their shopping. I fully intend to be on first-name terms with all my customers once I get to know them.
And expansion is on the cards, is it?
Of course, it may take a while as we are a new business, but the plan is to extend the range of organic products we sell to include meat and dairy produce, and eventually to open more branches in other parts of London. But expanding the business does not mean that we do not intend to stick to our main principles, which are to sell high-quality goods at reasonable prices in a friendly neighbourhood shop. We don't just see ourselves as a business, but as a part of the community.
Well, that just about wraps everything up. The only thing that remains for me to add is that listeners can find the shop at 27...
Module 3, Exercise 1, page 34. Speaker 1.
Our trip to Las Vegas wasn't exactly cheap for a family of 4. We didn't mind, though, because we wanted it to be a really special trip for all of us. Some of our friends thought the kids wouldn't enjoy it as much as we would, but they were wrong. There was loads of great family entertainment on offer. There was just so much to do and see that no one got bored for even a minute. I'm just glad we could afford such a great family trip.
Speaker 2.
A group of us from uni decided that a great way to spend our summer holidays would be to do something really adventurous. We opted for backpacking in Peru. It was going to be the trip of a lifetime. What we didn't know, though, was that you have to spend some time getting used to being high up in the mountains before you start doing any hiking, or in fact, any kind of strenuous activity at all. We all ended up getting altitude sickness, which is really awful, and we had to cut our holiday short. Next time I decide to be adventurous, I'll make sure I've looked into it properly first.
Speaker 3.
Simon and I have been going to the same place for over 10 years now. The reason we've always loved it is that it has top quality facilities and service, and it's a lovely, peaceful spot to relax. They've managed to retain the character of the area and encourage tourism at the same time. No big ugly hotels or huge noisy discos. It's small and it's friendly, and you can really get away from it all there. It's a shame more places don't offer the same kind of tourism.
Speaker 4.
My mate Pete persuaded me to go with him to a popular Mediterranean resort. He kept telling me what a fantastic time we'd have, and how great the nightlife was, etc., etc. So I thought, why not? Be a bit adventurous for once and try something different. You see, I usually like going hill walking, that kind of thing. But I was willing to try something new for a change. As it turned out, I simply couldn't wait for it to be over. I was bored on the beach and hated the loud bars. Just not my cup of tea, I'm afraid.
Speaker 5.
I wasn't keen on the idea of going camping in the first place, but my girlfriend is a real outdoor nature-loving type. The first couple of days I was just miserable, stuck in a damp tent in a muddy field, and I kept kicking myself for ever having listened to her. Then something clicked, and I saw the funny side of it. I decided it was best to make the most of it. I soon found cooking hot soup over an open fire after a day hiking in the countryside is just what she'd said it would be. Marvellous. It was quite a revelation, really.
Speaker 6.
I'd just come out of hospital after an operation, and my husband decided that what I really needed to get me back on my feet was a good holiday. So he booked a 2-week cruise down the Nile. It took me a couple of days to adjust to the heat, but I have to say that my husband was absolutely right. We had a marvellous time. I got plenty of time to relax, lounging on the deck, as well as visiting some of the most spectacular archaeological sites in the world. The only problem is now I've got the cruise bug, and I want to go on a Caribbean cruise this Christmas, which will cost quite a lot.
Exercise 2, page 34.
Now today we have something really interesting for our young listeners. Mr. Peter Cowell runs a summer sailing school for teenagers in the beautiful islands of the Caribbean. Peter, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about this exciting opportunity?
Hello all. Well, yes, we run an instructional school for sailing. We train our students in what is known as offshore sailing as well as navigation.
Now let me ask you a question, Peter. Do the students actually live aboard the sailboat the whole time? Or do they get to stay in some beachfront hotel and spend their days on a sailboat? Because either of these options sounds pretty terrific.
Actually, the students can do either depending on the length of the course. We have shorter courses that last only 6 to 10 days, where the students will spend all of their time on the sailboat. We also have longer courses lasting about 4 weeks, where the students are based on land and have daily instruction and sailing.
Now, during these longer programs, do the students ever get to sleep on the sailboat?
Sure. The longer programs include a number of trips that last anywhere from 2 to 4 days, with the students sleeping on board the sailboat. During these trips, we try to make port at some of the more interesting islands nearby to allow the students to not only get a feel for sailing, but also for the local culture and way of life.
I have to say, not only does this sound like a great opportunity for young people, but also like an amazing job for you. Why did you get involved with sailing anyway?
I'm originally from London, and as I'm sure you know, the sun is in scarce supply over there. But more importantly, I've always had a passion for the sea, and I want to be able to make it possible for young people who share the same passion to experience it as fully as possible.
What are some skills besides sailing that these kids will be able to gain while participating in your program?
That's a great question. Well, the most important skill the kids learn is teamwork. Sailing is not a one-person sport. You need everyone working together, communicating, and sometimes even anticipating what needs to be done before being told to do it.
And are there other benefits too?
Well, sailing requires a lot of discipline and a good level of alertness and awareness of your surroundings, as a lack of attention could result in serious injury. Also, the young adults that take the course learn to rely on and improve their common sense, and to intuitively use various skills they have learned along the way, like how to read the weather and how to identify landmarks and sea life.
Well, it sounds like a great way to spend a summer holiday. Thank you, Peter, for your time.
Thank you.
Exercise 3, page 35.
If you're wondering where to spend your holidays this summer, but don't want to go to one of those huge, faceless resorts, then why not try a holiday with a difference? John Rigby of Go Fair, a travel agency, is here to tell us about some of the alternatives on offer. Good morning, John.
Good morning to you and all your listeners.
From what I understand, John, your agency is aimed at people who want an eco-holiday. Is that right?
I wouldn't call it ecotourism exactly, because we don't offer things like trips to Brazil to help protect the rainforest and so on. What we do is help people find a holiday that is going to have as low an impact as possible on the environment. In other words, we don't organise package holidays to large resorts. We work with small, independent travel companies.
So why's that good for the environment then?
For lots of reasons, really. Many beautiful places all over the world have lost their character because they've been overdeveloped. This has led to the destruction of the natural environment and has created the kind of tourism that means you never really get to be a part of the culture you are visiting. And most of the money you spend goes into the pockets of the big companies and not to the locals.
Can you give us some examples of the kind of holidays someone could book with your agency?
Oh, there are all sorts of them, really. But I could start with some of our most popular ones. Beach holidays in sunny climates are usually at the top of people's lists. But with us, we'll book you into a small, often family-run hotel. Also popular are walking holidays. They're great for people who really want to feel closer to the natural environment. And for those who want to get away from it all, how about going on a yoga retreat holiday or to a traditional spa?
What about cost? I suppose a lot of the holidays you have mentioned are quite pricey.
Well, obviously we can't compete with the package deals on prices, But we think that these kinds of holiday are, in fact, too cheap, and nature is paying the price. I would like to say, though, that we do offer holidays to suit almost everyone's budget, and we aim to keep our prices as low as possible. For instance, a week in a traditional Greek cottage is quite affordable, and it's a sustainable form of tourism, far better than staying in some characterless hotel. Surely it's worth a little extra.
Don't you think that it's unlikely that these kinds of holiday will ever become really popular?
I don't think anything could be further from the truth. For one thing, not only is awareness about green holidays growing, but also many people want a real experience from their holidays. They don't want to feel that going on holiday is like a factory process. You know, sometimes you can feel that you haven't left the country at all. The only difference is that it's sunnier. Well, people are getting fed up with this, and that's a good thing in my opinion.
A lot of ecologists are saying that we shouldn't even go abroad for our holidays as flying is damaging for the environment too.
They're absolutely right, of course. But I don't think we're going to see the end of foreign travel anytime soon, especially when you consider the wet, chilly summers we often have here in Britain. Nonetheless, more and more people are opting for holidays at home, and you can have a lovely time in your own country too. In fact, we offer lots of holidays for those who want to see more of the British Isles.
So where do you go on holiday?
It's not often I actually get to go on holiday, I'm afraid, as I'm too busy organising them for others. I really want to help make tourism a force for nature and not against it, and that takes up a lot of my time. What my wife and I really enjoy is going on mini breaks to places like the Lake District, and last year we even stayed in a castle in Ireland for a week. It was wonderful.
John, it's been lovely to have you with us this morning, and thanks for all the fascinating information.
It's been a pleasure.
Module 4, Exercise 1, page 48. Speaker 1.
Before I set off, I heard the forecast on the radio as I was having breakfast. I knew there was a possibility of gale force winds, but I chose to risk it. I thought the climb would only take a couple of hours at most. Anyway, it was so calm that morning, I thought they must have got it wrong. What a mistake! I was only halfway up the mountain when I had to turn back. There was nowhere to find shelter, which made it worse. I ran as fast as I could and just hoped for the best. It was a frightening experience. I was lucky I got back uninjured.
Speaker 2.
I must have been only about 10 at the time, but I remember it all so clearly. My brother, sister and I were visiting our grandparents. They live not far from St. Andrews, where there's a fantastic beach. Well, we went there in the morning to avoid all the crowds and the weather was unusually good, so we spent most of the day there, having our picnic, running along the sand, building sandcastles. Everything was perfect until we got back to the house. We were all as red as tomatoes. Grandma had to put this horrible pink liquid on our backs to make us feel better. It was my first lesson in avoiding sunburn. Now, of course, I'm more careful.
Speaker 3.
When I was invited to Jenny's 21st birthday party, I wasn't sure I would be able to make it, but I decided to make an effort to go as she is a really good friend of mine. The problem is, she lives quite far away. I had to drive after work to get there, so I was tired, and to make matters worse, I got stuck in a traffic jam. Then, heavy snow started to fall, and in no time at all, driving was becoming quite dangerous. As you can imagine, I had to drive very slowly and carefully. When I finally got to Jenny's house, she had already cut the cake, and most people were saying their goodbyes. I was really disappointed.
Speaker 4.
We had been warned about the heavy rain, so we piled up sandbags all around the house. We also moved some things upstairs, like the computer and the TV. When we went to bed, we just hoped for the best. The children and even our dog Jasper were really scared and couldn't sleep because of the howling wind. I told everyone not to worry and that everything would be all right. But when we woke up the next morning, we got a nasty surprise. The water had broken through the sandbags and flooded the house. Everything was soaking wet. The carpets, the furniture, and even the curtains. Of course they were ruined and everything had to be thrown out.
Speaker 5.
I was driving my mother's car when suddenly it just stalled, and I remember thinking that she should really get herself a new car. It was absolutely freezing outside, so I really didn't want to get out of the car. However, as it was getting quite foggy as well, I decided I had better take a quick look under the bonnet to see if I could spot anything wrong. Unfortunately, I couldn't tell what was wrong with it. Then the temperature began to drop even further, so I got back into the car to try to keep warm. Luckily, I had my mobile phone with me and I was able to call home. My dad came as soon as he possibly could. It took him nearly an hour to get to me because of the fog and ice on the roads. When he arrived, he gave me some hot tea from a flask to warm me up, and he managed to get the car going too.
Speaker 6.
It was our last day on holiday in the Mediterranean, and we decided to take the kids on a boat trip to a nearby island to see dolphins. When we set off early in the morning, it looked like it was going to be a lovely summer day. Unfortunately, about an hour into the trip, the sky clouded over, the wind really picked up, and the sea became very choppy. The captain decided it would be a good idea to turn back, but that didn't stop us all from getting really seasick. We all felt terrible while we were on the boat, and none of us managed to keep our breakfasts down. It was awful.
Exercise 2, page 48.
Wildlife campaigners are always telling us to make sure the souvenirs we bring back from holiday were made without causing injury or death to rare or endangered animals. But what does that mean? In the studio with us today to tell us exactly what we are and aren't allowed to bring back home with us, we have Customs Officer Ian Bridges. Ian, welcome to the programme.
Thanks.
This summer season, a record number of British tourists are expected to head to various countries, including some very exotic locations. What sort of things do they typically bring back as souvenirs?
Well, thankfully, most tourists are very careful about what they bring back with them. In most cases, the souvenirs they buy aren't harmful, such as the typical Mexican sombrero hat or some castanets, all good fun and certainly nothing cruel to animals.
What about illegal items?
Although some illegal items are brought in by smugglers for profit, many items are brought back by holidaymakers as souvenirs.
You mean they don't know that what they have brought back is illegal?
That's right. All too often, weird and wonderful goods bought by tourists have to be confiscated by the likes of myself. People get quite upset when you tell them they have to give up their souvenirs. But it's either that or pay a fine. In serious cases, people may even face a prison sentence.
What kinds of things are we prohibited from bringing into the country?
Things like ivory carvings, many types of fur, coral jewellery, feathers from protected species, or bags, belts and shoes made from certain animal skins. It depends on the country of origin.
So how does the traveller know what is and what isn't allowed?
You should avoid buying any questionable animal or plant products which might endanger rare species or damage the environment. That includes snakeskin or crocodile handbags and lizard skin wallets. We all love going abroad and bringing home a souvenir of the places we visit, but we have a duty not to destroy what we have gone to see. If you are in doubt, it's best not to buy anything.
How can people become better informed?
There are a variety of ways that we are using to educate people about what they should or shouldn't buy. For instance, there is a guide for travellers which you can obtain by contacting the Customs and Excise Advice Service, free of charge. Also, you can always ask the travel company you are booking with to give you information.
But obviously more needs to be done to educate the public.
Yes, I agree. The World Wildlife Fund has been working hard in recent years, for example, by showing exhibitions of seized souvenirs in various cities around the UK. Souvenir alert leaflets are distributed at international airports, and there are special luggage labels that show images of rare and endangered species.
Do many tourists smuggle in live animals?
You would be surprised what people try to get away with. There have been cases where a live snake has been worn like a belt, or live birds' eggs have been brought in using specially made vests with pouches. Sadly, not all live animals survive the journey they make. However, when illegal animals are seized and are still alive, they are sent to a holding centre. They are kept as evidence in future court cases, and most are then found homes in zoos.
What should we do if we suspect any illegal wildlife trade?
You can report it to our hotline at 01483 426 1121.
That's 01483 426 1121. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Exercise 3, page 49.
I'd like to welcome the environmentalist Paula Hutton, who is going to be talking to us today about the marine environment around Britain's shores. First of all, Paula, why do you think that British people should be concerned about it?
I think the main reason is pretty obvious, really. Britain is surrounded by water and has 3,200 kilometres of coastline. We need to be aware of the state of the marine environment because it has a direct effect on all of us. British people always have and always will depend on the sea for many things, for food and other natural resources, for jobs, and as a natural defence barrier.
So, is it all bad news?
As you know, many professionals, be it scientists, fishermen, divers or environmentalists like myself, have been voicing concerns over the decline of the marine environment for quite a while. The chief concern, of course, is the problem of pollution. Thankfully, the health of the marine environment is a priority for the European Union, and strategies are being developed to protect it. People have now come to realise that treating the sea like a huge dustbin not only harms wildlife, but also puts human life at risk. The seas around Britain are home to over 8,000 different species of plant and animal life, and we must ensure that nothing upsets the ecological balance of their natural habitat.
What kind of pollution threatens this balance?
There are many forms of pollution. In the past, the dumping of chemicals and heavy metals into the sea was a serious problem. Now, various regulations have put a stop to this practice. But problems still continue as a result of what was dumped in previous years. Even now, you can still find high concentrations of things like industrial chemicals and agricultural pesticides. It will take many more years before they drop to safe levels.
What other things pollute our waters?
Oil spills are a problem too, whether it is spilled accidentally because of careless transport or as a result of a devastating storm. Oil slicks cause pollution that take a very long time to clean up. With a greater number of oil platforms in the North Sea, the danger of accidental spills has increased. Unfortunately, we will probably never manage to reduce the risks to zero.
What can we hope to achieve?
We can work together to reduce the harmful products in our marine environment. By this, I don't just mean industrial pollution, but also plastic and aluminium packaging and other non-biodegradable waste. The effects of these kinds of waste can also be devastating. All too often, seabirds swallow pieces of plastic which make them feel full, and then they starve to death. Turtles and other sea animals eat plastic bags because they mistake them for food and then choke to death. We should all reduce our use of plastic packaging and participate in local recycling programs.
Is there anything else we can do?
How about joining a beach cleanup campaign? There are many initiatives, such as the Adopt a Beach program, that allow you to help tackle the problem. Thousands of volunteers work every year to pick up and record the amount and type of litter found on our beaches. In the last 10 years, the amount of litter found around the UK coastline has doubled, so individuals need to take action now, more than ever, before it becomes too great to reverse.
It is presumably in everyone's interest to deal with this problem.
Yes, of course. Beach litter isn't just an eyesore, it's dangerous too. But there is some good news. More and more UK beaches are being recommended for their good sea bathing quality, so it may no longer be a health hazard to go to your local beach. Before you go, check which beaches are safe at the online site The Good Beach Guide. And don't forget, the more involved you become in ensuring our beaches are clean, the more beaches there will be in the guide.
Module 5. Exercise 1, page 62. Speaker 1.
Something had to be done before the whole neighbourhood was destroyed. They kept coming round here late at night with their spray paint and stuff, and they'd hang around corners causing trouble. Every day there was new graffiti, but that was the first time they did it to my store. I had really had enough, so I called in the police.
Speaker 2.
It was awful. He was dressed like any normal guy, except that he had a mask on his face so I couldn't recognize him. I was really scared when I saw that he had a knife sticking out of his pocket. Obviously, he must have been scared of being caught, and he jumped out the window and ran off down the street. Unfortunately, he did manage to take my most expensive jewellery from my drawer.
Speaker 3.
It all came as a complete surprise. I mean, it's a lovely neighbourhood and it's certainly not considered dangerous. I just went out to my corner shop to get some batteries and this guy jumped me in the alley by the shop. He must have been hiding behind the crates. He pointed a gun and shouted. I don't remember anything else, but he took everything. My wallet, money, and even the batteries. And of course there were no cameras there. I still can't believe it.
Speaker 4.
Well, it was very late and I was on my way home. I took the usual route down Baker Street and along the Penny Bridge. I was a bit cautious because it was quite dark and there weren't any people around. I turned a corner and suddenly saw them standing there in front of me. I was relieved at first because they only asked me politely for some money. I was glad to give them my loose change. I often give beggars my loose change. I was outraged the next morning when I realised they had taken my wallet. It's scandalous.
Speaker 5.
I thought they looked suspicious, hanging around and all that, you understand, but I was quite busy at the time. Besides, I often get their type in here, and they always pay up like everyone else. Anyway, I reckon they took about £200 worth of goods without me noticing. At least they didn't put a knife to my throat or anything. It could have been a lot worse.
Speaker 6.
Ever since I was a child, I've hated being home alone late at night. I keep thinking I hear someone walking around upstairs or creeping around in the basement. Well, last Friday night, Bob and the kids had gone out, and I was sitting watching TV. All of a sudden, I could have sworn I heard someone trying to get in the back door. There have been a lot of burglaries in our neighbourhood, so I automatically thought it was a burglar. I should have gone to investigate, but I wasn't thinking straight and I phoned the police. You can't imagine how I felt when they showed up and discovered the neighbour's dog scratching at my back door. I said I was sorry, but they were very angry that I had wasted their time.
Exercise 2, page 62.
I'm sure many of you have dreamed of becoming a great fashion designer. Well, today in the studio, I'm joined by Margaret Lynch, owner and manager of Fashion Fancies.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
Now, a lot of people will be interested in hearing about how you started in the fashion world.
Well, to be honest, I had no idea that I would end up in this business. I was good at drawing when I was a kid, but I never did any designs for clothes. It happened more or less by accident. A very fashion-conscious friend of mine asked me to help her design a hat for some school competition, and to my surprise, we won first prize. I realised that I had talent and decided to use it.
So, what was your first job in the world of fashion?
Actually, my first job was rather an accident too. I sent some designs to a company, but strangely enough, they liked my photograph better and called me and asked me to model for them. They didn't seem to even bother with my sketches.
Really? That's an amazing story.
Yes, it is, and there's more to come. I did some modelling, but I wasn't too keen on it. I was determined to become a designer, and I always took my portfolio of sketches with me to shows. Well, one night, I left my sketches behind, and guess what? This well-known designer found them. He phoned me immediately and asked me to come and work for him.
And how old were you then, Margaret?
I had just turned 21. From then on, it was all work. I joined a team whose job it was to come up with new designs for dresses and shoes mostly. I stayed in that company for about 5 years, and I think everybody was impressed by me there. But I realised that I wanted to do something different. The company's style was a bit too old-fashioned for me. I had to leave.
Would you say that was the deciding moment in your career then?
Yes, without a doubt. I left and it wasn't easy. I almost gave up, but after 14 months being unemployed, I finally decided to get a loan and set up my own business. It all went very quickly from there. Before I knew it, I was designing clothes for famous actresses like Angelina Hughes and Elizabeth Howard.
That's a success story if ever I heard one. Of course, today, everyone knows your name. How many outlets do you have around the world now?
We have over 200 outlets, and we are launching our brand new jewellery collection soon in our new shop in Tokyo.
Well, Margaret, it's been a pleasure having you with us in the studio today. I know that a lot of people who...
Exercise 3, page 63.
I've been selling books for over 40 years now. I left school when I was 16 and got a job as a sales assistant in a bookshop. I worked there for 5 years and I really enjoyed it. When the owner wanted to retire, I decided to take a risk and buy the business for myself. It was difficult at the beginning when I was paying back the bank loan I had to take out, but on the whole I can't complain, it's been good. During those years there have been so many changes. The one thing I thought would never change, though, is the bookseller's trade. I have to admit I was wrong. We used to have one of those card catalogue systems for orders, but now all that's done by computers. For keeping up to date with all the latest releases, the internet is invaluable. My family said I'd never get the hang of it, but it wasn't difficult at all, and I'm a bit of an expert now. About 10 years ago, I had a coffee bar built at the back of the shop with comfy leather chairs, and that really increased business. Sales almost doubled overnight. There's something about the smell of coffee that puts people in a good mood. And if they're relaxed enough, they might even be fooled into believing that they're back at home in front of the fire and looking for a good book. And we have many. It's a really great atmosphere, and people use it as a meeting place at the end of a long, hard day at the office, and as I said, business improved. The latest thing to come along, though, might prove to be the end of my little bookshop. It's the e-book. Now, the e-book is a totally different way of reading in that you don't need books. It's an electronic book. You pay a fee, download a book from a website, and the pages appear on a small screen on the device, which is like a large mobile phone. But all that's no different from a paperback, isn't it? The only real advantage I can see is that it can hold hundreds, perhaps thousands of books. And to be honest, is all that choice necessary? On a bad day, I can't choose between my black shoes and my brown ones, let alone 1,000 books. Whenever we hear about something new, it always seems as though it's perfect. E-books can show animation and film clips, so they're just like a storybook with pictures. They have their own lights, so you can read them when it's dark. There's a memory, so you don't need a bookmark, and it'll open at the last page you were reading. But these are solutions to problems we didn't know we had. I haven't heard anyone complaining about traditional books. I keep reading in the newspapers that sales of CDs have really fallen since people started downloading music from the internet. I just hope that doesn't happen to my shop. The future's not all black, though. I chat to the customers who come for a quiet coffee and a read, and they say that this kind of gadget will never completely replace the traditional paperback. All new technology has its drawbacks. The e-book device is heavier than a small paperback and needs a power source. And let's not forget that it can be stolen like mobile phones. In the end, it's not up to me, it's up to the customers. I've heard e-books are very popular in Japan, but I have no idea if they'll be successful here or not. Time will tell, I suppose. If the public like e-books, then the dog-eared paperback may end up like vinyl records, videocassettes, and last year's games console, at the rubbish dump. I'm almost at retirement age. Anyone want to buy a bookshop?